Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is a show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of Heroclix. Today is going to be an interesting show. Main reason it's not video is because I've been editing video. So yeah, I'm a little bit tired of video. I've edited one topography at the time of this recording, and I think I'm working on the second one. So yeah, let's just say I need a break. So lazy audio it is, you know what I mean? Oh man. Anyway, today's show is going to be one of those inside of your head shows. But I normally I'm like, yo, if you don't like that, pass. Move on, go to the next show. But this one I really want everyone to really listen to, and might even come back to. And I'm not even saying that like, yo, doop-de-doo, I get more hits. And I think I sort of made it clear. It's like once in a blue moon and a lunar eclipse and all the planets align, I'll get paid by Google, okay? At around 200 hits per show. Trust me, the last thing I'm getting, from Google is a bit of a check. All right, so anyway, we're going to do a couple of. I'm going to bring up a couple of elements. Is this going to be like full free flowing thought sort of thing? No, and yes. No, it's not going to be ramblings, but I am going to move from point to point to point. So be aware. Also, there isn't going to be as like typical clear-cut outlines that I do in most shows. So, so most time, like, oh, he's going to talk about this. Yeah, I can skip over like 10, 15 minutes, and then I can probably hit that part that I want. Okay. All right. Pretty much the concept that I want to introduce to you all is understanding where you're at and what does growth mean and what does growth look like. I was listening to one lecture and the gentleman was saying, what success looks like in my head and what success looks like in your head are two different things. And one thing I sort of realized for myself, if I could have a way of life in which I am paid to lecture, teach, interact, and mentor, I would have like the most awesome life. But I mean, that's not my life now, and I would have to take major steps to move towards that, and some of that I don't know how to do. But I took a moment after I heard that. I was like, yeah, I just want to interact and help people grow and help people through situations. And to make them better people. And that's why I do this show, and I do it from this mental, moral, and ethical framework. Okay. And so a lot of you all are listening and it's just like, Dark Logos, he will tell me how I can win and pawn all the noobs and beat all the experienced people, and then I will be on the top and I shall be the champion and the ruler of this venue. Some of you listen and you're like, well, he just tells me some good things so that I can, sort of get some shorthand on what's, coming down the pipe. Some others, take a little bit what I say, a lot more seriously. And all of that's fine. The difference is, what is your category of success? All right. So if your success is you listen to this show and how it pertains to Heroclix, mind you, if your definition of success is when you finish listening to this show, you have gained something that allows you to do what you do better, or allows you to comfortably, keep flowing in that direction you're going, but do it more effectively, then yes, we're achieving stages of success. Are we moving toward where we want to go? Then we're achieving stages of success. If you're listening to me and you're getting frustrated and angry, you have to ask yourself, is it the fact that you have to push past personal boundaries, or it's just the fact that you're pushing in a direction that's not natural? And that's why, to an extent, I do the mentoring, and yes, it's, hey, $15 an hour, cool. But uh, there's things like I can't work with people on, directly through the show. Like I sort of have to shotgun approach things. And if I do sniper rifle, no Heroclix pun intended, a point or methodology, I also have to keep in mind that one element could completely isolate 80 to 90% of my audience by me bringing it up. So every student, every person that I've worked with to develop or help develop, whether they be a high level Heroclix player, or if they are a starting off person, I asked them a couple of questions, and in those questions I sort of could say, like, okay, where's your capacity at? And then it's my job as the teacher, leader, guider, is to make you more of who you are and bring in the elements that you need to do you better, to be the best version of you. Okay. And sometimes I think in our society, everyone's like, accept me for who I am, and that's fine. I can accept you for who you are, but I don't necessarily have to accept that this is the best version of you. And that's the difference. I've sort of realized that when I have gone out, and I give credit to this one chick at the salsa club, and insert Dark Logos's dating affairs, to say the least. There's one lady I dance with at the salsa club, and I did everything that my pickup artistry have told me to do. And again, I'm not the one night stand guy. I'm more like, hey, let me see if I can get your number to hang out and go do dates and other, fun social stuff. But sort of going back to this woman, great dancing, had her attention for a good 45 minutes on the floor, conversation, whatnot, gets to the point of asking for her number. She says, hey, why don't you give me your number? And so, like an idiot, I hand her my card. Never do that, guys. always gets the woman's number first, then give her your number by a text or whatever. But anyway, what ended up happening is, of course, I gave her my card, and then my main thought goes through my head is, whenever I give a woman my card, she never calls me, and the woman never called me. So next time I see her in the salsa club, I just say hey, and just keep rolling. This last Saturday, I see her again. I'm looking around for dances. I'm like, crap, she's the only one left. I don't want to look like the complete loser right now that can't get a dance. So I go over to her, ask her to dance. We start dancing, and then she starts talking, and she asks me the question, so how are you making your living right now? I read your card. You said you are a coach and speaker and this, that, and the other. And then what happened inside of my mind is I completely had this wah, 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 moment, because when I looked at my life, I felt like the current me is not the best version of me. And so what reflected out in my conversation is a lot of jibber jabber that, in all honesty, did not make me look well in front of her at all. Okay. So I actually appreciate that moment, because up until now, I've sort of been like, dang it, I hate some things in my life. This part of my life is awesome, but daggone it, I hate this part of my life. But I never really sort of attached that to, is this the best version of me? And that's the thing that I want you all to, just start asking yourself, is this the best Heroclix version of me as I play? If you're joking around, I would ask yourself, are you present? Are you present in the moment? Are you enjoying the company of the people around you? And I think this is something that if you're a more casual player and you listen to my show, I would really ask you, are you doing this, or in your casualness, are you just doing it to be socially accepted and not to have any sort of dynamic tension with your venue or your so-called quote-unquote friends? and really ask that. Are you being present? And in being that present, are you enjoying the people around you, and are you enjoying being yourself in the activity? And if so, the best type of player should naturally start to come out. The best example of this is a guy in my venue named Pat. And Pat is, when I came into the game, Pat was already experienced. And I always had fun playing Pat. And Pat would always play figures that he liked. And the thing that always sort of surprised me about Pat is that no matter what, about 80 to 90% of the games, he was having fun. And there was something that I've noticed about Pat through the years of play is Pat has moments where even though he plays casually, he will scare me in the game. Now, you might be saying, like, but you're Dark Logos. How can a casual all of a sudden threaten you? Because I'm not stupid. The best version of himself as a player is him playing theme and him thinking it out and him taking into account that he's going to play a guy like me. Whereas I'm thinking about playing meta stuff. I didn't look to see, how the little robot that goes with, with the humanoid or whatever goes with the leader, or I didn't pay attention how so-and-so figure interacted with the other figure of the Furious Five. Or I didn't care because I'm like, I'm never going to use those guys. Those traits don't work with my profile and my personality, but they work with his. And he has moments where he can make me laugh. And he says that was his whole goal, and that's how he would win. He would feel that he would get a win against me, even if I crushed his team. If I was able to if he was able to make me laugh or have a oh crap moment, then it's there. And I would say when it comes to those elements, going back to what is success, Pat's been a very successful player in Heroclix. Probably one of the most successful players I've gone against. His skill level is high. It's really high. I really want people to understand the difference between skill level and aptitude to pilot a high level team. Okay, they're two different things. I can have a high skill level of the knowledge of the game and not at any point in time craft a high level super meta team. Okay, so that's a big core of understanding. But sort of going back to Pat, in all my time that I've spent with Pat, if I knew that if I gave him, like, if I build a team and I was like, Pat, this team is meta, this team will crush, you have the skill and the know-how to use this team. If I gave him one of those teams, he will perform less than a casual team. Now, some of you might be thinking to yourself, like, that doesn't make sense. You've given him a optimal tool. He has high levels of skill, therefore his ability should be increased, and that's not necessarily the case. Again, who are you? What is the best version of you? And how does the best version of you come out? I just finished having an interaction of a gentleman using my services, and he said, I really like the fact that you talked about inner and outer game, and that's to an extent why I'm doing this episode. But the key element of sort of going back to Pat is that his inner game and his ability to make his decisions, his ability to be relaxed and calm and have fun and interact and sort of, jab me a bit for playing my hyper cheese that's intergalactic, made by Klingons, in another quadrant, okay, of space and time, okay. Uh, he'll rip me for it in a fun way that doesn't make me feel bad about playing it. Um, and so it becomes real interesting in that case. But he is the best player when he has become more relaxed, and he's able to take on average players and above average players and give them a very good run for their money, making the odds really in the favor of him 60-40. And for most of the people listening, it's sort of hard, definitely when I'm telling you all this tech, that the tech itself, and I'm just saying the tech, makes most of your games automatically 80-20. And then the amount of time and effort that you put in is determining that like extra 10% to make it up to 90, and then the other 10% is just your opponent acting in response to it. Okay. But for a person to have another concept, or as his thought and actions and being aligned, thoughts and actions and being aligned, to automatically start at 60 is a huge deal. And it's sort of like the Dragon Ball Z scouter level thing. The scouter level, according to Dragon Ball Z, the author of Dragon Ball Z, is that the scouter level didn't ever matter. It was a stupid number to make people to sort of display to the fact that the warriors from space with the scouter level or all that were distracted from the true nature of a warrior, from a true nature of a fighter. That a fighter with lower a power level could defeat a warrior of a higher power level. And so that's one thing that Dragon Ball tried to display, even though the freaking power level stuff became stupid. So stupid. Anyway. So sort of coming back, you have people like Pat that, are like Goku, Super Saiyan 3, but, he's over there, playing tiddlywinks and arm wrestling with his kids. Now, if he got, super pissed off and he decided to, construct a spirit bomb, yeah, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. But that's not the best version of him. And if you push him, a guy like that, to that point, the repercussions are worse for both of you, for him as a player and you as the individual. Okay, so that's sort of the first bit, and I think that I would say even with myself, we are outcome dependent. And when I mean outcome dependent, I mean we go into the tournament, and if we don't win, then we feel really bad about ourselves, that the whole definition of ourselves is completely lowered. And I also think this comes back to the fact that we are not recognizing who the best version of our Heroclix player is. I played against a guy named Seth today in a War of Light, and it was 500 points, and you got to bring in lanterns, and I didn't bring lanterns because I didn't care, because I was just there to try to pull the magical, entity, the Willy Wonka golden ticket, and I didn't pull it, but I pulled an Abensor, which I had already previously bought on eBay, so I ended up trading it for a black hand, which, yay, that worked out. What was I going to say? Anyway, so I played Seth, and this is the final round of War of Light, and I actually pulled a Green Lantern team, and I borrowed a Green Lantern battery, and the shenanigans that happened was beyond stupid against his team. And you could sort of see the frustration on his face as we were playing. And this is the second time where we got into the final round at this venue where, the two of us were facing each other. And to an extent, some of the pressure was, on the outcome. The fact that, he plays me I think he's only beaten me like twice. And each time he's worked for it. And so he sort of beats himself up at times and feels, bad as a player. But the one thing that it's sort of hard when you're fighting, me or Mega Lotus Man or a few other folks, is to see in the midst of the pressure how far you've grown. And that's why those like moments of self-reflection and taking it back and I kid you not, if you don't have the Heroclix notebook, I mean, you're on a computer, you're on a smartphone. I mean, my phone has memo options. Just put in, memo stuff, mini diary inside of Android, voice record yourself and your thoughts and play it back and listen to it. Write down your teams in a physical notebook or in a Word document. I kid you not, chronologically documenting yourself and seeing the growth of yourself, the thoughts of yourself and coming back to it is one of the most freeing things and one of the most revealing things. And with technology in our age, we have no excuse not to. If we can document or tweet when we have to take a crap, then we can document about our teams and how we're growing. Okay. And so by having that Heroclix notebook, I think it would help, guys like Seth, that you're going against tough guys every week. You're not beating them. You're putting up fights. The games are close. What's going on? Am I doing better? Am I doing worse? And it's hard to say like, oh, if I'm results outcome driven, if I'm outcome driven, then I'm 2-1. I have failed. And I did a show, I think, almost over a year ago, almost probably two, and it or a blog post, and it was when 2-1 feels like 1-2. Okay? When 2-1 feels like 1-2. And it's that point where you've lost and you're so built up to this one moment and it doesn't happen. That one prize just doesn't fall in your hands, and now you're sort of mad and you want to be more driven. And the thing that, if I could go back to my younger self and say, okay, in the midst of that, did I play the best Heroclix that I could play? Did I act in a way that I would want others to act, to me as during a serious tournament? Where was I, mindful of my decision making? Have I taken steps to rectify that? And I sort of noticed that, I have asked myself these questions slowly, very slowly, over like 10 years, almost 10 years. And just ask myself like, okay, why did I do that thing? Why did I feel like this? And then I'll address it, and I might fiddle with it. And then when I start winning again, I won't think about it that much. And then when I go into play testing, then again, those questions come up. It's like, why do I keep going here? Why do I do this? And then you can, again, hit this point of self-actualization where you start to understand who you are as a person, but also understanding why who you are as a person will impact how you play Heroclix and how you will emotionally process. And so anyway, it sort of transitioning into the next part of us getting outside of outcomes based driven and into proper growth models. What does a proper growth model mean? First off, it definitely means that you are going to need goals. You're going to need ambiguous goals, and you're also going to need clear-cut goals. You also need baby step goals, and you also need long-term goals. Okay. I know some of you are like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be in the game that long. Just translate this to life, and it'll help you out a lot. I'm still working on it, and I'll give you some examples with myself. Um, when I was in high school, and I think this is probably one of the reasons why I was able to do as much as I did in high school. I had on my wall at the beginning of the year a list of goals for the year, things that I wanted to do in that year. As I got older, I strayed forward from a lot of it, and I start to notice, like, yep, I can understand why, like, the last 5 years didn't seem productive, or the last period, this X period of time. I haven't wrote down any goals, haven't been goal, oriented, let alone wanted to have any sort of goal outcome other than I want to get this done. Okay, it's done. My goal is done. But let's break it down. First off, we're going to start with our short-term goals. Like you want to say, like, I want to build a team that makes me feel comfortable. That's a short-term goal. Okay, then it's like, I want to work on my aggro. Every one of my students that I've worked with, after we've identified this is the area that we want to improve on, we just focus on that primarily, and then we start to weave in other elements to support it. Once the target problem is identified, whether it's imbalance or lack of committal or over-analysis, under-analysis, hyper-aggro, and, shouldn't even be hyper-aggro, the super turtle, whatever it is, we come back and it's just like, okay, let's look at what we need to incrementally change so that we can get it back on track. So first, you have small goals, tweaking problems, tweaking your teams, tweaking your thought process, tweaking your emotional state. I am not a proponent of drug use or of taking any contents that will alter your frame. Primarily, and here's why, primarily in the sense of you need to be fully aware so that you are not taken advantage of in any way, whether it be in the game or in life. If I never got the idea, the concept of it was a great night last night because I don't remember it. What was so great about it was that headache that you had afterward, that person that's over there that you have no clue who they are and what you did with them, and why is that dog in your living room? It makes no sense. You don't own a dog. So I'm not ever a full proponent of that. And I know I have listeners who have sent me conversations about certain things. We'll just leave it at that. But here's why I'm not a proponent of it during a game. You don't know fully if you have achieved your goals. You don't know why you achieved your goals. And also the biggest one is you have not consciously achieved your goals. The one thing that is interesting about any sort of impairment, whether it's even so much so of lack of sleep, hypercaffeine, dehydration, taking in, drugs or drinking or whatever, is that all of those elements hinder a part of the brain and turns on another part of the brain that, when you're in total homeostasis balance, are not on or off in those ways. Okay. And if you're like, wow, I only am awesome if I've, smoked 15 cigarettes before I've played a game, or I am only awesome if, I've drank 5 Red Bulls before playing, I'm only awesome if I've done, this other thing that I've added in. What you've conditioned, you've conditioned yourself purely for outcome. B, when you're asking what is the actual solution, you have already triggered parts in your brain to say the solution is X magic pill. instead of hard work development changing the way your brain functions. You said, poop, pop magic pill, problem solved. I'm going to go be awesome. The other thing is that growth can't occur because to achieve the state that you're at naturally, you have to overwrite your addiction and overwrite your chemical synapses that are already hardwired in your brain. So you're making your job worse. Okay. One thing during a tournament, I try not to eat candy or anything like that, or I definitely don't drink caffeine or take in caffeine. Mainly because how my body works with caffeine, because I don't drink caffeine, period. It really rarely, and if I do, it's in tea. My body holds on to caffeine like hardcore. So it first makes me sleepy, and I'm really tired and groggy, and then I will ride the caffeine for about 8 to 10 hours. I drank like a Mountain Dew one time, and I was up for 12 hours. I took, I don't know if they even sell these anymore. They're like caffeine pills. When I was in undergrad, I was up 23 hours. Yeah, I was up 23 hours off of 2 pills. And here's the thing with me. When I get sleepy, when I get tired, it's the closest that I get to intoxication, or to an intoxicated state. And then I started to notice that when I was interacting with people, when I was tired, it was, people were like, "Oh my gosh, you're so hilarious when you're tired," and blah, blah, blah. "This is awesome. Oh, Edward's tired, and he said all these things. It was cool." And I started asking myself, like, what the heck did I say? I don't remember what happened. And then I started to understand that, there were certain things that I've inhibited myself on that are okay to express naturally. And then I need to recalibrate myself. And that sort of leads into the goal element, is where is our calibration at? What are these goals, or purpose of these goals? The purpose of the short-term goals are for calibration. It's to make sure that we're hitting our proper marks, and if we're not, we're taking steps and means and measures to try to hit the point. Okay, it's hard to calibrate if you're intoxicated and you can't remember. It's hard to calibrate if you're sugar high. It's hard to calibrate if you're sleepy. It's hard to calibrate if you're extremely tired. Okay, so if you're physically exhausted, and that's the only reason why you're winning in Heroclix, then the thing I would ask yourself is, why are you so tense? Why do you have to exhaust yourself completely to finally relax? What's so important about that little plastic man that you have to burn yourself out to finally get him? Okay, and how much are you weighing the game on your personal identity and the way others view you? One reason I can play hardcore is because I don't give a darn about the rest of the people in that venue and what they think about me as a player. I am nice to them as a person. I'm relatable to them as a person. I shake them with their hands. I make fair trades. I offer information for free. But once that game started, I don't care what the hell you think about me. I will crush your face. But a lot of people can't do that. Well, why is that? Because they're people pleasers. They'd rather have other people like them because they play weak teams, or like them because, oh, look, there's struggle, than it is to actually have the person respect them for the type of player that they are. I will never try to make a player that I teach somebody that they're not. I never try to make people clones of me. I try to make you the better you. But those are some problems, and those are some hindrances. I mean, even more so when we're talking about calibration and going back to this idea of who am I at that table? Do you care about what other folks think about you? And if so, that is going to hinder you in life, period. I mean, when I listen to feedback from the show, it's like, okay, this is my product. I need to improve my product this way. If someone is like, man, Dark Logos, your voice is annoying, and I'd be like, you need to go watch another show. Okay, this voice isn't going away. or hey, Dark Logos, you're just too heady. I'm like, you need to go listen to another show. Okay. I'm sorry. There are tons of other HeroClix shows that you can listen to that aren't heady. You can go listen to My Wife and Clicks. You can go listen to Glass Cabinet Hobbies if it's not an interview, because those interviews are heady. Okay. And I mean, Ryan does a good job with that, 80 to 90% of the time. Sometimes it's just like, this is wacky town. Like, I'm done. I clock out, but that's just me. People like that. But I mean, you can start to see how that's going. That if I'm trying to be Ryan, which I was for a period of time, I'm like, man, how do I need to do these training series so I can get these people. And then, Ryan was doing it better. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to do this other thing, so I can get the hits. And then, somebody else was doing it better. And then that's when I was like, man, screw it. The people that are going to listen to me and watch my show are going to listen and watch my show because of me and what I'm bringing and what is unique. That's it. Even if you listen to Dial H is a different perspective on the meta than what I'm doing. Just is. They give you a different set of analysis. Even on the Quarry, different set of analysis than what this show is. Okay. So you can be like, well, I'll listen to Dial H because it's better than Dark Logos and Starting Over. And sometimes I'll listen to Starting Over because sometimes he hits points. Okay, whatever, don't care. Okay. So you can start to see, by me not caring and me just sort of rolling on, be like, oh well. It allows me a lot of freedom. Does that mean that I apply harm to others? No. Does that mean that I'm completely narcissistic? No. Does that mean that I put my means and ends above everyone else's to their own harm? No. But I do keep in mind my personal goals, means, ends, and current state. Okay? You have to keep all of that in mind. All right, so sort of moving on to those long-term goals, and the importance of the long-term goals is why they're supposed to be a little bit ambiguous, is that once you hit, the end of a time frame, you need to feel comfortable saying, yes, I did that. If you don't feel comfortable saying, yes, I did that, then guess what? You did not achieve your goal. If in your long-term goal, you say, hey, it's my long-term goal to become better at aggro. Well, how can you measure you've been better at aggro? Like what? How many kills Jubilee got? Like, no, it's going to be a general feeling to an extent. You can sort of document like, after the tournament, I had a good time. I didn't really feel comfortable with blah. And this is what happened, blah, 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 blah. My aggro is getting better, but it's not as good as I wanted. Okay. But then comes back to the question. It's like, did I become better at aggro? Well, according to my logs, when I look back at my logs, I've become better at aggro. I have not hit where I want to hit. So next year, okay, hit this part of, make it a little bit more specific after it's ambiguous. I want to feel comfortable controlling aggro in a high tempo situation. Okay, or I want to use aggro to instill tempo on my opponent. Bum, 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 bum. Boom, done. Okay, so now we went from super ambiguous to less ambiguous, and that lets us know that in our calibration that we're heading down the right track. And then once you're like, yeah, you know what, I'm sort of done with this aggro thing, or you're at a point like, I'm super comfortable. Now let me really, really focus on defense, or let me really, really focus on shenanigans. Let me try to fully balance and master my play. Then yeah, it's good. There are a few people that are naturally balanced in design in how their brain works. Most people sort of split off. The problem with usually I put it like this. When I deal with most people, they either lean toward shenanigans or defense or hyper aggro. They just naturally do. And then it's my goal to see like what they're next comfortable with, and then try to bring the other elements on par and integrate those other elements to that extreme. While that extreme is still the extreme, it is not as big of an extreme. When you deal with a person that's balanced, it's sort of like drawing a pinwheel. It's you're going in this loop, covering everything and over again, but you're expanding the ground. And so a person that's well balanced, it takes more time to develop them, because you're not trying to bring one thing to a high extreme. But those players that are well balanced, once they make that lap, it's really hard for them to collapse. When you're dealing with some people with extreme and you're trying to bring other things like up to that high level, you're sort of yanking against one mentality, trying to enforce another, and it can get really frustrating. And you're trying to tell the student, do this, and they're like, I don't want to do this, and then you're like, gotta do this or else you won't get better, and they're like, no, please, no, and it becomes a problem. But if you deal with a person that's well balanced, the growth seems slower. Growth seems a lot slower, but the core elements that they're able to refine down is way more impactful. It just takes longer. So you might be able to say like, oh wow, guy's a natural super aggro player. He has okay shenanigans, very poor defense. He just like blows through people. Just he has a natural instinct of just chasing people down the map and blowing them away. Okay. If I have a not as impressive balanced player and I can just spend time with them, will it take a long time for me to get that well balanced player up to the level of aggression of that natural? Oh yeah, it'll take a long time. But here's the thing that you have to think about. By the time I get that well-balanced player up to the skill level of that natural or even close, what else is also on that same skill level? Their shenanigans and their defense. Who's going to blow who away when that finally happens? Or you can even say when that well-balanced person is about 2/3 of the strength of aggro to that natural. When you start factoring in that the other person's shenanigans and the balanced person's shenanigans and defenses game is way better, who's going to win? So again, well balanced has its advantages. It's slow. Being tilted toward one thing or the other is fine. It's just bringing everything else back up into par or weaving things in. It becomes, that's where the work is. But I wanted to be clear that there's never any time where there's not work, and there's never any time where it's just like, oh, okay, this is idle. The last thing I really want to hit you with, and this is the thing that came out of my paid session, and I just wanted to let you all know this. And again, if you have a paid session, there's little nuggets that, full understanding of the nuggets and interaction elements of the nuggets that you get to have. Selfless plug. There we go. But it was this. When we were looking at each other's teams, and the guy I was playing, he had me on the ropes in our game for a good chunk of the game after his opening salvo. But I was able to control some things with tempo, and my shenanigan was freaking dumb. It wasn't my original shenanigan. It also didn't help, too, that I was testing something out. So my original tech that I was using was slightly tweaked in a different direction, but I learned some things. Going back, I pointed out to him at the end of the match, and I was like, okay, let me tell you like why the game went the way it did. And even though your team is really well built, let me just show you in terms of experience and time the difference between your team and my team. And I broke down each figure and I said, I spent 10 hours talking about this. I spent 2 days talking with 3 people about this other thing. I've spent, 4 days talking with another person about this. I have done nothing but talk about this last thing. This one element is the thing that I have not talked about and I had the least knowledge of or utility of in this entire game. And you can see how well that performed. Okay. It didn't, and that thing didn't perform too well. It made like one attack. Okay. So you can start to see that I had time and I had effort. I had concise information. I had interactions. And I had this huge knowledge base that for that one team, for that 40 minutes of play is about 2 weeks of, if that was my 9 to 5 job, worth of tech conversations. It's 2 weeks. Now, every figure that you've dealt with, talked with, played with, understood with, joked around, listened to me talk about, let's say, that's an hour of your time. If you start looking at figures and you start asking yourself, okay, how many hours of time are wrapped up into this figure? Okay. I'm going to pick a random figure off my Heroclix wall of silliness right here. Okay. Tomo Ray, the first one from the Green Lantern set. Okay. I have probably played this guy, oh gosh, so many times. I at least have 100 hours with him. Just from play experience, from tech experience, from me looking at him with teams, I have at least 100 hours with him. What does that mean when I place him on a team? If my opponent doesn't have 100 hours worth of experience on their entire team, does that mean that, Tomo Ray can carry everything? No, but it does mean that the odds of my success is a lot higher. Okay, let's look at another figure up here. Okay, figure I've never played. Weapon X from Captain America. Okay, with countdown clicks and all. What's the chances of me being, super boss with this guy? Probably low. I know that he's a freaking super beast when it comes to his attack and he has blades and whatnot, and that's awesome. But I don't think I would be fully comfortable fronting him on my team, even though he's really cheap and super good still, even right now. He's real super good. Okay. Now, if someone told me you have this fight coming up and I'm going to offer you one of 2 weapons, for this tournament, either Tomar 2 or Wolverine Weapon X, which one do you think I'm going to go to? Of course, I'm going to go to Tomar 2. I don't care what everybody else has. I know how to adapt Tomar 2. I know how to play Tomar 2 when my range is 6. And some people might say that's stupid, but I know how to play that. Do you? Can you change a piece that in their design is to have a 12 range and to play that piece as if it had a 6 range? I have. I've had to. Okay? So, when it comes down to it, where is your history? If you start looking at why are you good and why are you bad, how many hours are you putting into certain figures? Are you putting in enough hours? Are you wasting your hours? Are you putting in too little hours? I had a sort of powwow with my students this week, and I need to talk to one about getting information from him about Blink. All because of, one gentleman that paid for my services had him on his team. I did some analysis with him. I helped, I talked with him. I did some additional breakdown with him. Just sort of say, hey, thank you for supporting me. Here's some additional breakdown of your team. Okay. And guess what? He made me ponder like, how can I break this? Like I already said, before, she was on my list of this character is silly. This shouldn't be possible. It has spatial manipulation problems and whatnot. But then I started saying to myself, I'm like, well, I haven't played her. And this guy thought about it, and I looked at his team, and I tried to tweak his team to get rid of her, and it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe she is better than I thought. Well, what if I do this and this and this? And I go talk to student number one. He's like, well, do this other thing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, do that. Then I go and talk to student number two, and he's like, no, okay, try it like this and put these things on here. And so then I go talk to, one of my friends. He's like, nah, this is the stuff. So 3 conversations, let's say they're an hour each. Let's say I got 30 minutes each out of each of them. 30 minutes each out of each conversation. I have an hour and a half of tech talk and understanding on Blink and how to utilize her. Okay. Now you might say, well, Dark Logos, you're really behind because most people have had months of play with her. Like, well, really? Have they had months of play? Have they been actively playing her? Are they playing the new shiny? Are they so focused on that they haven't even, thought about her? So those things come into play as well. It's just like, when's the last time that you had a 400 point or 500 point game that you thought about using Void from Streets of Gotham as your support piece? Really ask yourself that. Is she a bad piece? No. How much time did you put into her when she first came out? Probably a lot. But what happened? The new shiny came out. Other things came out. Oh, I don't think they're that good. I don't know. Well, what happens if I combine her with a proselyte? Ooh. What happens then? So you can start to see that, oh, wow, hey. You mean that old stuff that I actually invested time in is still viable and allows me to do very impactful things if I put my thought and effort into it. And that's really what I want to go into, is that a lot of folks stop short. A lot of folks will say, well, I put in 5 hours into that figure, I'm done. I put in this amount of time in that figure, I'm done. Okay, now I'm going to build my teams. Okay, my team's total hours, when you put it on the field, including, design and thoughts you had during the design. Let's just say a team's total hours on average is about, let's say 20. And I'm just saying this in general because I'm counting from the time that you surf the realms and look at it, and to every time that you talk to your friend about it. I'm just saying, clumping it all together is 20. What happens when a 20-hour team meets a 500-hour team? What happens when a 20-hour team meets a 1,000-hour team or a year team? Really, think about that. Does that automatically mean that the year team is going to win, or that the 20-hour team is automatically superior since it's full of new stuff? No, but you can start to see that with the 100-hour team, the richness is there, the layers are there, the understanding is there, the complexity is easier to understand because there's ingrained familiarity. There's things that have been tested. There are little tricks, nuances about it that are in the 100-hour team that aren't present in the 20-hour team. So the level of depth that can be brought from the player, and this is where skill comes in, can be found evident in that 100-hour team. And that's why you can find players who can play an X-Men themed team on a hyper competitive level and do well with it, or a Legion team. Shout outs to my man, Roni KJS. There's people like that because that's the atmosphere that they've cultivated, because they've put in the work, and then it works with their thoughts and their actions, and it aligns together. They've had goals because their goal is to make their favorite team work, and they've calibrated, and took all those lessons over the their course and span of learning the game, and then boom, they're champion material, even though they're playing casual. They're high level understanding and meta because they have 100,000 hours of tech and understanding and conversations and what ifs and man, this team needs that. Oh my gosh, they got that. I didn't know that was coming. Oh, what if they got this? Did you see that thing that they got there? Oh, so and so played that. Okay, I'm gonna steal this element. I'm gonna put that in there. I'm gonna mix in this figure. Boom. Then I'm gonna add this other thing. Man, then they're not going to see that coming, because once this effect goes off, bam, barrier comes up, then they can't draw a line of fire to me, and it's over. Peace. Out. Done. Victory. It's a lot different. And you might start to say, well, Dark Logos, is this the world that you live in? This is the world that goes on in your mind. Not every day. Not every day. But every interaction that I have, and it's mainly because I have a teaching spirit and a preacher. I'm a teacher and a preacher. That's why I do a podcast. I like interacting with people, and I like to lecture. So I'm a teacher and preacher. Okay. So, but in me, the analysis and breakdown comes out in a certain way. And I'm able to chop it up and give it to you, the listener, or to whoever I'm working with, in a very particular way so that you can understand it and digest it and become better. But for me to chop it up and break it down, I have to spend time with it in my head and spend time with it seeing things. And then I have to humble myself and talk to other folks and then find out where I'm wrong at and where I'm right at and what's that ruling. I didn't hear about that. Oh, okay, cool. What was your thoughts again on this? Oh, I forgot. All right, I'm going to write that down. And then I have documentations. If you saw my book from Gen Con of all the work that I did, you would be like, wow. You would just be like, wow. And that's not even my Heroclix notebook. Just my Gen Con notebook. That's how seriously I took Gen Con this year. So, anyway, that's mainly it. That's today's show. I really want you all to be encouraged, and I really want you all to come back to this show over and over and over and over and over again. And the main reason is I always get an email. How do I become better? How can I, whoop these people and beat these folks? And I want to be a Heroclix master like you, Dark Logos, and sit upon the mountain in lotus position, hovering 15 feet and, spinning dice and, have Lydia Malor, Proxima Midnight and Bizarro circling around your head as the Holy Trinity or something. Like, and really, it just comes down to, are you putting in the work? And not just working to work, but in a methodical process that's going to refine you. That's straight up. Anyway, you can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me, man, you're so far from the best version of you, but you're better than where you were before. You can check out my random musings, my witty. You can tell it's late. It's 2:43 in the morning. My witty repartee. If I get some repartee on Twitter. Also, you can find out when new episodes are up. As soon as they're up, it fires off on the Twitter. You can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com if you wish to opine. Keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. If you would like to enlist my services, you can email me there. If you have teams already made, I am willing to assist you with your thoughts and your concepts and stuff for your team for free. I've always done that and always will do that as long as I'm capable. I'm not getting like 100 emails a week, just saying. I also like interacting with you all because, sometimes during the week I'm bored and I'm like, oh, cool, fan email. Or it's like, ain't nobody listening to this show. And it's like, oh, shoot, fan email. Like, all right, you want to hear about this? Yeah, I'll make a show about that. So, yeah. Then, last but not least, you can check out the blog, startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. There's a post once in a blue moon when the light shimmers in the right way about stuff. Mainly, I use the blog for the PayPal donation link. So if you want to enlist my services, you just go to the blog, click on the PayPal link, and then you can pay me that way, or you can donate to the show and everything goes toward the show. If you ever want to like donate like stuff for giveaways or whatever, just email me and then we can just try to coordinate stuff. Usually right now, Dan's swabs for probs is going on. So if you have anything that you like, hey, here's prize support, I'd like to donate to your show, just donate it to Dan and just say, hey, Edward said, direct it in your way. So I'd rather you have help props for swabs. Also, real briefly, if you're interested in another charity thing, we have the what was it? It's not Clicks for the Cure. I didn't even know why. Again, tired. So tired right now. Extra Life Heroclix Charity raffle. $5 gets you 2 entries. $3 gets you 1 entry. Just some cool stuff to be given away. So, yep. That's mostly it. And then I'll have the link in the show description. Yeah, that's it. All right, I'm about to go get some sleep. Side note, I ate a big bowl of pistachio pudding. And that stuff gave me mad gas. So I had to pause the recording 5 times because I don't drink milk and you have to add milk in there, and gosh, milk farts. It's hilarious. All right, I knew that would get y'all. Anyway, thanks for listening. And remember, we all have to start over sometime.